Hey there, it's Hillary, and I'm finally going to be getting to my June recap. For the month of June, I read 13 books. Now, I did listen to some of them on audiobook. As I like to mention, I'm a mom, so not only do I have to watch my kids, I have to cook and I have to clean and I have to do all those sort of things. So audiobooks are a nice way for me to still get to stick to my reading. I can still do all the other things that I need to do around my house. So the first two books I actually listened to on audiobook, and mostly because I read the first one in this series and I wanted to read the next two, and I don't have them. I have the prequel and the first one on paperback, so I'd like to continue with paperback. So I listened to Glass Sword and King's Cage on audiobook. Glass Sword, I gave it 4 stars. It started out kind of slow, but I did end up enjoying it. I really enjoyed her whole series, and I don't want to talk about the book too much just because it's the second in a series. I loved the character development in this book. I loved the cliffhanger ending. It definitely made me need to read the third book. The twists and turns continued from the first book, and I really enjoyed that. The book definitely kept me intrigued the entire time. The second one that I listened to, like I already said, was King's Cage. It's the third book in the Red Queen series. I loved that in this book the characters are very flawed and they're very relatable. I really enjoy reading books about characters like that, and so this book really does that for me. But it also is just one of those books that's like, oh my gosh, why can't you learn from the mistakes because you keep making the same ones? But, you know, that's how we are as people. You know, we make the same mistakes over and over sometimes until we learn our lesson, and you know, the characters in this book just haven't managed to do that. I also love that this book is told in multiple perspectives. It's told from like 2 or 3 different perspectives, and I really liked that. It seemed like whenever the story started to drag a little bit, it would change and it'd get told from a new perspective, and you'd get like a new twist, and that was really nice. It was really refreshing. So that is the first 2 audiobooks that I listened to. The third book that I read in the month of June was Cruel Crown, which is actually like a little short story book that goes along with the Red Queen series. I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 stars as well. I liked the 2 stories that were in it. One was about Queen Corianne, and the other one is about Captain Farley. If I had to choose, I would definitely say I like the one about Queen Corianne better. I actually could have even taken more about her. I honestly don't think it was enough. I think you could have written so much more about her, and I really enjoyed that story. The one about Captain Farley, I will say, it's written in like a lot of like secret messages, so there's like a lot of code text in it, and that can be a little bit confusing if you're not paying attention, but I also think that if you are paying attention, it's not that difficult to understand what they're trying to say. So I did like this book. Technically, if you read this book, it's not like, you won't complete the book. Like, the last like 60 pages in here are a sampler from Glass Sword. So I did consider that I read the entire book, but I had already read Glass Sword, so I didn't read the pieces of Glass Sword that was in this book. The next audiobook series that I listened to was the Raven Cycle. I will say I really enjoyed listening to them on an audiobook. Will Patton is the person that is reading them, and he did such an amazing job. Different character voices, and it was just amazing. I do want to reread the entire series and actually read it. I just don't own it right now, and it would be amazing if I got lucky enough to find them at the Goodwill, because that's where I shop most of the time, or if not, then I might end up waiting till Christmas and asking for them and then giving them a reread. Plus, by that point, it'll be a few months later, and I'm also hoping that I pick up some different things now that I've listened to the entire series, that I'll pick up some things that I didn't pick up on the first time. So going down each one, the first one in the Raven Cycle series is the Raven Boys. I gave that one 4 stars. I really liked that this was a different type of story. I liked the mystery, I liked the intrigue, I liked the characters that were in it. It was just a really good book all around. The second book in the series is The Dream Thieves. I gave that one 4 stars as well. This one, it takes more time in developing the character of Ronan Lynch, and I really like him. I have to say that if I picked out a character from the series that was my favorite, it would be him. So I really enjoyed having an entire book that's basically about him. Yes, the other characters are in it, but it is like about him, and I really enjoyed that. The third book in this series is Blue Lily Lily Blue. And I would have to say that this one, when I read it, it was definitely my favorite so far. I loved the character of Gwenllian, and I thought Will Patton's voice for her was amazing. I just loved it. This one definitely had a shocking ending, and I literally was like, when I got to the ending of it, and it was like really surprising. I just really enjoyed this one. For Blue Lily Lily Blue, I gave that one 5 stars, and I gave The Raven King 5 stars as well. I really enjoyed this series. I think the most difficult thing for me is that it's over. I would say this book gave me like a book hangover. I was looking at people's reviews. I wanted someone to talk about this with. And it's honestly, I think this book is one of the reasons why I wanted to start a booktube channel. Like, I want someone to talk about these books with. They were just so amazing. I watched people's reviews, and it was like each person had like a different take on the ending of the book. And I was like, oh, I can see that. Oh, I can see that as well. It was just so neat to see like the different ways that the ending of this book was interpreted, and I really liked it. Honestly, I wish that, like with her Shiver series, that she ended up writing a 4th book to that series later. I would love something else from her with these books, like short stories about them, or like a book written a few years later where they all are. I just thought it was amazing, and I can't get enough, which is part of the reason why I want to read the entire series over. The next book is a book that I actually read, and I was probably reading some of these while listening to the ones on audiobook, just listening to them when I got the chance, but the way that I completed them, I really enjoyed The Raven Cycle, so I listened to that one pretty much straight and put a pause on my reading because I was enjoying them so much. The next one is Everland by Wendy Spinelli. I really enjoyed this book. I love fantasy, I love retellings, I love dystopians, and this book had a little bit of all of that. This book, if you don't know, it's a retelling of Peter Pan, but it's set in a dystopian setting. This book is basically, there has been a plague and no one over the age of a teenager survives it. So it's basically like that's where you get your Neverland from. There are no adults left alive, and it's just a really interesting take on Peter Pan's story. I feel like there are a lot of them now. Like, there's a lot of different ones. I really want to read Lost Boys, but I did really enjoy this one. I gave this one 4 stars. The next book that I read for the month of June is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I also gave this one 4 stars. I went on a 4-star rampage in the month of June, but that's a good thing. I really enjoyed everything that I read. I love Neal Shusterman's writing. His books are always so different. I haven't read his Unwind series, but I've heard a lot of booktubers talk about it, and it sounds like something that I would really enjoy because I like dystopians. But this one, I feel like this is another new take on a dystopian. The idea of this book is that no one dies of natural causes anymore, and if they do, they are sort of like brought back to life. And the job of the Scythes in this book are to choose who gets to die. So in this book, there are 2 teenagers, and they become the apprentice of a Scythe, and he's going to choose one of them to become a Scythe. So they're both training, and he's going to choose one. I really enjoyed this book. It was a great like coming of age story where you're following these 2 teenagers who are, you know, doing this really hard thing where they have to like watch people be killed and kill people, because that's, you know, that's the job of the scythe. I can't imagine having that as a job. It's really interesting. It's just a really good, like, good versus evil story. Like, what you think is good and what you think is evil, is that really truly what it is? So I really enjoyed this one. I can't wait for the second one to come out next year. The next book that I read, I went on a small, like, weekend vacation, and I got Everything while I was there, and I read it in a day. I just really enjoyed the story. I gave it 4 stars. It was a wonderful, fluffy contemporary. It was an easy read. I really liked the mixed media throughout it. It is full of drawings, and there are, like, she's looked things up online. There are instant messages. I just love that in a book. I love when books have mixed media. I also loved a lot of the chapters were really short. They didn't drag on. I loved the characters. I liked the plot. I liked the message behind the story. I will say that I felt like it ended very abruptly, but I was okay with it. I could have had more coming from it, but I was okay with it. I was satisfied. So I would say that's the reason why I gave it 4 stars. I wish there had been more, but I was still okay with the way everything went. The next book that I read for the month of June was Umberland by Wendy Spinelli. This is the sequel to the Everland, which I read earlier in the month. I really enjoyed this one for the aspect of it being a retelling, and that Wendy Spinelli wove her stories together fairly well, not as well as the Lunar Chronicles, which I just loved, but she did a pretty good job, and that maybe if she continued writing some books like this, then she'd be able to continue weaving them the way Marissa Meyer does with her Lunar Chronicles. I will say, though, that this book did disappoint me a little bit. As we continued through the story and we got close to the end, we were introduced to some brand new characters and some, like, new plot development, and then the book ended so abruptly, and you didn't have enough time to develop these new characters. You've introduced these new plots fairly close to the end of the book, and as I was reading them, I was like, there's no way she's going to get to develop this as much as she needs to. And then the book ends, and you're just left hanging, and if she does write another book to go along in this series, I might change my mind about how I feel about this book, but as of right now, I didn't think that she ended this book and developed her characters enough to give it more than 3 stars. So that was a little disappointing. I really thought I was going to enjoy this one more than I did. The next book that I read for the month of June was The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. This was my first book that I have read by Becky Albertalli, and I thought she did a really good job. It definitely makes me want to read her other book, Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda. I really want to read that one now. This is a nice, fluffy, contemporary, very easy read, very relatable characters. I felt like I could pick out parts of myself in all of these characters, but I think the funny thing is the character that I relate to the most is not Molly, who is the main character of this book. Molly is like a 17-year-old high school student. The character that I related to the most was Nadine, who is one of the moms in the book, and she is a 40-year-old nursing mom. And as a mom myself, it's just funny that that's the character that I related to, but that's just one of the things I've been talking about on BookTube, about how my reading experiences are going to be different. So I really enjoyed it. The things that she was saying, I was like, oh my gosh, that's happened to me as well. So it's just funny. It was a really good read, though. Even though I couldn't relate to the main character as much as some younger readers might, it was still a really enjoyable read for me, and I definitely would suggest this one to people. And the last book that I read for the month was Eliza and Her Monsters. I definitely went on a contemporary kick for the month of June, and a lot of them were very diverse reads. I gave Eliza and Her Monsters 4 stars. The story was really nice. It was an easy read. It did take me a little bit longer to read this one because I actually had an issue with my book and I had to get a new copy sent to me. I made a video about it. My book was put together wrong and I had some chapters missing and my chapters weren't going in order, and I didn't realize it until I hit one chapter that I had already read. And so then I contacted a publisher to have them send me a new book. So I will try to link the video down in the comments so you can see about what happened to me. Besides that, I've really enjoyed this book. This is another book that had some mixed media. It had drawings, it had instant messages, and like I said about everything, I really like when books do that. I just find it to be nice and refreshing, and it makes your reading experience a lot easier. And it's not just words, it's other things to look at while you're reading. It's like an adult picture book or something. It's just really fun. The ending to this book was very satisfying. I loved, as you're reading, seeing all the struggles that these characters are going through, and I think that makes characters very relatable when they have struggles and they have hardships. I really enjoy reading about that. It makes it much more relatable. And the book definitely seemed very genuine, and I loved that as well. So those are all the books that I read for the month of June. I did pick a lot of contemporaries that I definitely read through very quickly, so I think that has something to do with my able to read so many books. I enjoyed all of the books that I've read for the month of June, so if you've read any of those books, you don't have to worry about spoilers because I've already read them all. So if you've read any of those or you really enjoyed those, or you're planning on reading any of those, leave me a message down in the comment. Let me know what you read for the month of June and if you read anything super amazing and you think I need to read it. If you'd like to join me for some more videos, please like and subscribe. I'm going to try to be posting videos frequently on this channel, but as I've said, I'm a mom of 3 kids, so sometimes it doesn't happen. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!